Good afternoon and welcome to Prism Sound Presents Creative Conversations. This is what we hope will be the first of many conversations we have with luminaries and creative individuals from the audio industry. This month we're joined by Gethin Pearson, producer, engineer, mixer and songwriter, who's worked with the likes of Charlie XCX, Badly Drawn Boy, Crystal Fighters and The Enemy. So, without further ado, let me introduce Gethin Pearson. How you doing, Gethin?
Hey, Jody, nice to see you. You good?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How's the weather down in Wales today?
It's absolutely gorgeous outside today. Absolutely gorgeous, although I'm in a windowless basement, so I don't get to benefit from it.
Oh, well, you know, the lives and times of working in the audio industry, don't you just love it?
Exactly. Self-inflicted.
So you weren't always in the music industry. I believe you had a career before this, and you gave that all up to work in the industry. So you know, what made you want to get into music, and you know, how long have you been producing for?
So, well, I've always played in bands, always been in music, always wrote songs, and yeah, so always had that passion, always had the love for it. And sometimes, you know, life takes you on different paths at the, you know, as you're working on it. So I was working as a primary school teacher, part-time primary school teacher, and part-time making records, making music with people. So I had still got my own studio, little studio at home, which I would record demos with bands here, tracks. And then as I just got busier and busier with that, I was able to move then from teaching to fully working on records, which was it was quite a scary jump to make, you know, from, you know, a real world employed job, I guess, to this. But yeah, one I don't regret.
No, I think that's one of the things is that, you know, it's once you're in the audio industry, you don't regret it. There's days that you kind of think, oh God, why did I do that? But actually, I don't think any of us say we don't love it. You know, it's just it's a passion, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You've got, I think, you know, it can be really tough. It can, you know, you have these, you know, high ups and quite low lows, and it's about, I guess, it's the, you know, the hook, the passion, and the love of music, I guess, which keeps you there, keeps you going. You know, it's kind of if you are in this just well, under the illusion that, you know, making lots of money or living a flash lifestyle, then it's probably not, you know, the path to pursue.
Well, that kind of leads me on to my next question, really. What kind of inspires you and makes you want to keep making music?
Just hearing great voices or great bands and great energy. You get a sense when you work with like, I'm so lucky that I get to work with a wide range of people, both in terms of like the style of music or the personality, but also where they might be along a career, whether it might be a band who've never been in the studio, or an artist who's, you know, never been in the studio before, to someone who's like made, you know, countless records, or, you know, is far into their career. And it's just finding like the thing that I really is like finding the hook in them, like what is making them tick, or trying to make something fresh for them if they've been in it for a while. Yeah, so it's those things that I guess that keep you engaged with it, is the fact that it's always different. It's you know, working with different people, and trying to find different ways about things.
So you've obviously worked with, you know, a lot of people, and we'll come on to that shortly. But you know, in your career and, you know, in your influences, what artists have inspired you, and, you know, what genres of musical talent have most influenced your creative decisions?
Oh, that's so it's kind of, I grew up, me and my brother, listening to like almost like traditional bluegrass. My father was really into like bluegrass music, so we grew up with that. And I think it's funny, you can listen back and look back at all the different stages of I guess musical development, and see what parts of them have stuck with you. So I always like to think it's like, you know, those songs from that, you know, that we grew up listening to from those records, they're timeless. It's like, you know, the lyrics, you know, the melody, everything about them, they're like timeless songs. So I like to think that's what's kind of influenced how you know, what I try and achieve when you write in songs. Then there's, you know, in my early teens, mid-teens, I got into bands. You know, I got into first like kind of bands that were big in Wales at the time, like, you know, Stereophonics and things like that. And then moved into like heavier bands like punk stuff and metal stuff. And then I think like from that era, you know, that excitement of music, like you're discovering these new sounds, you know, that is what I keep, you know, that era of music is kind of, like that excitement and that rawness to it, the aggression. It's like, even when I'm working on something that is maybe like synth based, or, you know, I want the synths to sound as exciting as those guitars sounded to me when I was younger, you know, and that energy and that how it made you feel. And then later on, then I kind of got into like programming music and yeah, how I could like make beats and marry it with guitar music. So yeah, there's like lots of different kind of steps along the way that I think have, you know, have added to that kind of the taste, I guess, the taste, which is why I guess I get, you know, I get to work on so many different types of projects and with different types of artists, is because I can relate to all the different types of genres, because, you know, I don't want to make the same, you don't want to listen to the same record every day, all day. And it's the same, I guess I don't want to make the same record over and over again, you know? So it's, yeah, it's about the art, it's about the artist and what they're trying to achieve, rather than about them going through like, I don't know, like a my process, essentially.
So I think, you know, one of the things that you've touched on there is the obviously you asked me about the influences, and there comes a situation where, you know, you take the sleeve notes of something and you're looking at, you know, who produced it, who mastered it, who engineered it, and you start to go, actually, I like this guy's work, not from necessarily the artist perspective, but the way it's mixed or the way it's produced or those types of things. So having the experience that you've got now, you know, what do you think makes a great producer?
A great producer is someone, I guess, who doesn't get in the way of the record, but can help shape the record. I think, as in, you know, it's kind of, yeah, not about, you're there to kind of push the artist and push the music and help that be fully realized, rather than it being about you know, a producer's ego, I guess, type of thing, or about, you know, ultimately it's like, I'll say to people, it's like, look, this isn't my record, it's not a Gethin Pearson record type of thing, it's your record. It's kind of, obviously I've got ideas and I've got things what we can do, and I've got things that are within, you know, my taste as well, but ultimately it's about trying to help that band or that artist be like 100, achieve like the fully realized version of them, or like the, you know, trying to push them as far as, you know, sometimes further than they're willing to go at times, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, and I'll always say, it's like, look, we can go too far and always scale it back a little bit, but I'd rather do that and try and put you in a new place, rather than, you know, or like a fresh place, rather than just kind of follow a kind of a pattern, or just, you know, the same old but routine type of thing. So yeah, I think it's about, yeah, not getting in the way of a record and or the artist and the music, but trying to fully like serve the music, I guess.
Right. So, you know, taking all those things into consideration and what you've already mentioned, is there, you know, one thing in particular that you'd say is more important than the rest?
In terms of what, sorry?
In terms of production, in terms of being a producer, and the things that you've just mentioned about, you know, the skill set that the producer has, is there one thing that you would say is more important than the rest?
Listening, just always listening to not just the actual music that's coming out of the speakers, but like the opinions of the people you're working with. Is kind of, you know, when I was like when I was younger, when I was starting out, when I you know, I had a little setup and I'd be recording people, I was almost, not arrogant's the wrong word, but almost like, it was like, right, well, I want to write the song, I want to produce the song, I'm going to mix the song, you know, kind of all those things. Whereas you know, and it kind of, now it's more about, right, well, you know, or like people would say maybe have an idea, and I'd be like, oh, I don't think that's going to work. You know, I'd already made my mind up without even hearing what the idea was, you know, whereas like and I feel, and you know, it was such a, it was, you know, no, it was the wrong way to be. It's kind of now any ideas like, well, let's listen to it, let's listen, you know, it's kind of, and now we can you know, think how we feel about it type of thing, rather than it being written off before we even hear it. And I see it in bands now almost, where like, you know, sometimes in younger bands they'll want to be like, oh, I've got an idea, and like someone will be like, no, before it's even been, you know, explained or heard. So yeah, listening to like the actual, obviously the music, but also like what people have to say in the room, like who the people who are part of the process type of thing. Or like, you know, sometimes in a band dynamic, especially, there's the one who's like sometimes not as a, won't have the chance to give an opinion, kind of giving them the chance to say, well, what do you think about this type of thing? You know, the person who's not asked much within the group, kind of, yeah, to make everyone feel like we're all in it together type of thing. We're all pushing the same rock up the hill.
Yeah. So it sounds like, you know, from where you started, you know, you didn't use the word arrogance, but you know, that's what your connotations were towards that, and you sounds like you've grown a hell of a lot to where you are today. And you know, to that end, you work with everyone from Charlie XCX, The Enemy, Crystal Fighters, Kelly from Block Party, and most recently, Badly Drawn Boy. So how have these partnerships come about for you?
So yeah, a lot of them, it's always kind of someone who hears something you've done, and whether it be someone on their, you know, their team or the artist himself, and yeah, and then you get asked if you'd be up for doing something or trying something out. With the Kelly one, I was asked to do he was doing a one-off track for like a cover album, and so I got to do, you know, we did the track together, and you know, obviously a massive fan of the band and him as a solo artist. I just said when we're doing this track, and I said, oh, look, I'd love to hear any ideas you're working on, you know, if you'd like to do any more. And then, well, first of all, he just said no chance, and I was like, oh, brokenhearted. And then he said, oh, I'm joking, of course. And then that led to doing his record. Yeah, so it's kind of things like, and then when that record was released, actually the day that record was released, I had a call from somebody else saying, oh, we've got a band at the moment, they're looking to start their record, would you be up for chatting with them, you know, what you did, where you kind of took that record, it would be great to hear what you could do with these guys. So like I had a test, you know, did again test track with them, and now we're halfway through an album. So it's kind of, yeah, it's, you don't know who's listening to what you're doing, I guess. So there's that thing of no matter what I work on, no matter what I'm doing, again, no matter what size, it's kind of like everything needs to go into it, because it's you know, part of the story, I guess.
Right. So, you know, it is about, no matter what comes in front of you, to grabbing it with both hands and, you know, giving it your all, because you never know who's going to hear it, in effect.
Well, it's the person you're working for deserves your all as well, you know. It's kind of, they're trusting you with something. But you know, to write a song, you know, to come and write a song is kind of a great thing, no matter, you know, it's such a personal thing as well a lot of the time. So to be trusted with people's music, they owe it, no matter what, again, what the perceived size of the artist is. It's like they deserve that attention. You know, they've trusted you with it. They come to you and said, oh, you know, there's thousands, there's millions of people out there. They said, oh, we would like you to, you know, help us with this. So it's kind of, you still get, you know, it's still kind of like a buzz getting asked to work on something or chatting with people before we get in the studio, or even like getting into a studio is still like trying never to have the complacency about it, you know.
It is, you know, it's the same from our perspective as a manufacturer. You know, when people want to check out our gear and we get asked to go to artists or studios or whatever, you know, we still look on it as a privilege. So, you know, I completely understand where you're coming from. Coming on to one of the subjects that, you know, is quite relevant at the moment, because, you know, let's talk about the new Badly Drawn Boy album. So, you know, it's received rave reviews, and, you know, it's been record of the week on many radio stations. It's been, you know, in many publications. It's been on Sky One this week. It's been on BBC Breakfast. So what is it about banana skin shoes? Interesting title. I'll come on to that in a second. That has endeared it to the nation. And, you know, what is it about the collaboration between you guys that just clicked and worked? Because
Well,
I know you were involved in many aspects of it. So you produced, mixed, and also co-wrote one of the songs. But you
yeah,
produced
yeah.
and mixed the whole album, didn't you?
Yeah, so first of all, I think why so many people are into it, and indeed is, first of all, it's like the first record Damon's done in a while, that's been released in a while, and he's an incredible songwriter. It's like an incredible songwriter, so effortless, so his sense of melody, his lyrics, and how he puts it together, and how he hears things. So first of all, I think it's not a surprise that it's, when I say it's not a surprise, again, that's not it's not a surprise people like it, because I think it's what he's done, the songs he's written before it's even been produced and mixed and finished, like the actual songs he's written are great songs. So but that's again, I think that's the first part of it, is the actual songs. But yeah, so again, I was lucky enough to be invited just for a chat with Damon. About he had started working on the record a good few years ago with a few different people, and had a few, like, started a bit and then left it for a bit. He had a few different things going on in life, so like it didn't ever really get finished. And so he was like, he had so many different ideas started and couldn't really see it, maybe had to put it all together. And so I got called away. We've got the same manager, and like I jokingly said before I had finished a project, and I said, well, that's that's my audition to do some work with Damon, like joking. And then a few weeks later, I had a call saying, oh, Damon would love to meet you, and she had some things, would love to meet you. So I took a trip to where he lives up in Manchester. We had breakfast together, chatted ideas. He said where he was at. He said, I've got a lot of ideas that have kind of just been started, a few ideas that I need to get finished, and a few that I haven't even started yet. Would you be interested? He's like in helping me with it. So I, again, before saying yes, I wanted to hear where he was at with things, what he wanted to do, because you have to feel that you can bring something to it as well. It's easy, rather than just saying yes and kind of thinking, oh, this isn't where I want to be, type of thing. This isn't what so I listened to the ideas, and again, fell in love with the songs. Like, even some of the most primitive ones, like demos that he had, you could hear that there was some incredible songs there. So we got into the studio. We did, again, like a trial few days to see how we got on with things. And within those 3 days, we got 3 songs from scratch. We started with some tracks from scratch, got those together. It felt good. And then, that was me for the next few months, and just going back and forth from here to Manchester for making that record.
Cool. Fantastic. So, the other thing that I know you're really into, and you've done a lot of recently, because I know you and I have spoken about this, is that you help with a lot of artist development and new and upcoming talent. So you've been doing some stuff for Virgin Records, I believe, and one of your most unique qualities as a producer is the ability to steer artists in new directions. So how does this differ when working with established artists? And as opposed to new talent, or is that quite similar approach?
It's quite, it's kind of, once you're in the room with someone, it doesn't matter what they've done outside of that room. Almost, they're still, as they're still maybe looking for a fresh set of ears on their ideas as much as anyone. So for example, talking about this Badly Drawn Boy record, he would often say, it feels like I'm making my debut album again. It feels like I'm making a debut album, like both in terms of like the way we were working on it sonically, the sonics we were going for, the sound we were going for, but also because it'd been so long since he made another record. But then also it's kind of, I think sometimes with an artist who has like who's maybe done a few records, is I've noticed sometimes you get a little bit more like trust in terms of off the bat, because they've been through the process a few times. Like, if it's not sounding finished when you're still setting up the drums, type. You know, they know that it's like, okay, we're going to do this. They kind of know some of not the routine, but kind of that it's not gonna, you're not just gonna press play off the first take and it sound like a finished record maybe. Whereas, you know, sometimes newer acts, and it's good that they want to know what's happening, you know, they're asking questions type of thing. So that's sometimes the difference is like, and it takes a while to kind of, and I think the word earn is the right word, like earn their trust, because again, like I said earlier, it's they if it's maybe the first time they've been in the studio, it's like, you know, so communicating with them, oh, we're going to do this, and then we might try this, kind of guiding them along the way. And you've earned their trust with their music. It's like, it's the first, you know, they've saved, you know, the money to get in the studio. So yeah, it's kind of, yeah, I think that's what I would say is a little bit different. If that's answered the question.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's great.
If I haven't answered it, just ask it again.
So, you know, when you're taking or you're listening to new ideas or demo tracks that, you know, an artist has brought in, you know, what are the things that you're looking for? And, you know, and as a sort of tag onto that is, you know, how do you address the sensitive task of discussing about changes or rearrangements with them? You know, what are you looking for, and how do you, you know, deal with, you know, artists' sensitivities, because obviously they are quite intrinsically linked to the music that they create.
Well, totally. It's kind of what I would say is, first of all, there's a reason why you've been asked, you know, maybe to listen to it. So it's about that first conversation. It's like, okay, before I listen to the music, what are you hoping from this? What are you looking for? You're looking for someone who's going to say, look, we need to, you know, it's kind of sort of judging that first conversation, about meeting with someone is kind of, it's a lot about that, reading them. It's kind of, again, it's that it's something you just pick up on where they're at, you know, where they're at both like mentally with their music, I guess, or with the progress of a project, and kind of finding out, you know, you can tell if someone feels like something's almost finished and they present it to you and say, oh, look, we just need a mix maybe, or we just want some fresh ears on this just for some minor tweaks, or whether they, you know, like, I'm just lost with this at the moment. What do you think? So kind of picking up, judging that, but also, yeah, it's about how you put things to people, isn't it? It's like, asking them, like, where do you feel this is at the moment? Where, in terms of, you know, do you feel like we're still at demo stage, or do you feel like you've presented something that you're happy to put out? You know, and then saying, look, okay, if we're going to work together, then I need to be able to be honest with you about how I feel about this. You know, maybe I feel like this could, you know, it could be something based on the song. It's like the actual core song content. Like, you know, it's kind of, I feel like the chorus isn't strong enough yet, you know, as an actual song. So no matter what we do production wise, it's, you know, you need to deal with that aspect first. Do you want, you know, I would love to work on that with you. How do you feel about that? Or is it something, you know, well, I'll go away on my own and work on that as my song, or with it in a band, they might be like, well, we want to look at that, or they might be like, well, no, we'd love to hear your ideas on it. Mm-hmm. You know, so there's the song part of it first, and then it could be a case of this presenting this like, oh, it just sounds like everything else we've done. What can we do with it? You know, we just feel, and it could be a case of saying, right, okay, let's just take the song and then rebuild it with new sonics. Let's see what we can do with changing the tempo, changing the beat, helping them change their relationship with it, where they're kind of like, you know, they just feel like they're stuck in the same zone type of thing, and they just want a fresh look of it. So it's like, right, okay, well, you know, showing them some different sounds that we can use on it, or some different ways of playing it, or just trying to make them excited about it again.
Sure. Okay. Well, actually, interesting enough, we've had a couple of questions in. And it's kind of linked to what we've just been talking about. So although I was going to kind of jump to the Q&A at the end, I think this one's kind of relevant at this point. So Paul has asked a question and said, if you're an artist who writes, produces yourself at home and have the song as good, as ready as you can make it, is it worth approaching a producer to try and get help with it?
I think it's always good. Well, yes, definitely. It's always good to have because once you put it out, people are going to hear it and make opinions about it anyway. So it's why not before that? It's kind of if there's someone you're like, oh, I love this guy's productions, or I really like this mixer. Just reaching out, just seeing. It's kind of like we're in a time where you can just reach out to pretty much anyone, and just, or even just like friends, kind of people who are into the same music as you, or people who kind of get what you're going for, saying, oh, have a listen to this, see what you think. So I'll always, no matter what I'm working on, it's like I'll always go upstairs and then play it like in the house and like see how, I won't even say to like my wife, oh, can you listen to this? I'll just like put it on and see how she reacts, gauge. If she's like, oh, who's this? Then it's like, oh, cool, there's already, there must be something in it, but got her interest, type of thing. So yeah, definitely other producers, but if you feel like you've produced it and you've written it and you're happy with the production, even just like some work on the mix side of it, the sonic side of it, thinking, oh, does it, I know that my arrangement's really good, I'm really pleased with my song, but like sonically I feel like it could be taken elsewhere, like reaching out to some mixers, or people like that could always benefit it, maybe.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think one of the things that I'm going to move on to now, so we're going to sort of park the demo thing for a moment, is that, something that people always ask me, and it's difficult for me working for a manufacturer, so it'd be interesting, to hear from your perspective, is that people starting out in the music industry, in the audio industry, maybe questioning what they need to get started. So what was the first pieces of kit that you ever bought, and why did you buy them?
The first, I remember I got an Apple Power, like it is when I started my PGC for teaching, and I took out an extra student loan just to be able to get a little setup. So I bought, I think it was like an Apple PowerBook at the time, and a little M box and a microphone, like one microphone. And I was like, right, I've got a studio now. I'm gonna make records. And I was just in my bedroom in my parents' house thinking, why doesn't this sound like a record yet? I was like, I've got Pro Tools. It must sound like a record now. But yeah, so, and then later down the further on type of thing, it was about you kind of realize that it's not about those things really. It's kind of like, of course you need, like now, so wherever I go, I'll take my interfaces with me, my Prism interface with me, because I know that it's got some great pre's in it and it's got great converters. So I know that whatever I record wherever I go, but it's going to be a good quality signal type of thing. So like the technical aspect of it, kind of, I would say, something which gives you it's not going to mess up what you're recording. Essentially, it's going to give you good quality conversion, like from analog to digital, and likewise back out. So that is that. But also in terms of the more of like, I guess the bigger picture, philosophical side of making records, is kind of ideas.
Right.
Ideas, and also, but on that note as well, it was kind of, I remember like early days, I do a lot of demos for bands, and kind of no matter how many kind of tutorials I would read on how to get that sound or how to do this, I was like, it just doesn't sound like a record. It doesn't sound like, it's like the drums sound good, this sounds good, but it just doesn't feel like, that goosebumps type of, hair stand on end type of feel. And then I remember I did I was doing some demos here, ready to go in and do an album, and it was literally a microphone just plugged in, no effects, and the singer sang, and it was like, oh, that's it. Sounds like an album, sounds like a record. And it was like a demo, just like a programmed drum groove, simple chord structure on like a guitar and a vocal, but it sounded like and I was like, and that's when it twigged. It was like, oh, it's not all that stuff. It's kind of about the talent of who you're recording, and the idea of what you're recording. So it's kind of, so when you start to marry that up with those types of incredible equipment, incredible converters, incredible interfaces, and hearing it in great treated rooms, obviously that enhances it, that makes it even better. But ultimately, it's kind of like, it's that I guess that core talent that you're trying to capture. Yeah.
No, completely understand. Get where you're coming from.
I know you just
you've now just wiped out my next four
Prism,
questions.
You're fine. I know that's what you're angling for.
No, actually, what I was kind of driving at was, obviously you've touched on the fact that your understanding of technology and your understanding of equipment changes as you become more accustomed to what you're trying to achieve and what your objective is. And so, you kindly talk about our equipment. You use Prism sound interfaces. But one of the things I want to ask you about is understanding that capture element of it. So understanding, is it important to capture it in a neutral, transparent, accurate way, and be able to add for a better terminology, creative elements, the compression, the EQ, adapt the signal afterwards. And also kind of going along with that, is it important to have some reference points? So you mentioned about having your Prism interface in your own studio, but when you go to, say, a bigger facility, a bigger recording studio where you might have to track lots of instruments, is it important to have that frame of reference? So taking your interface with you, so what you're hearing is what you heard in your own facility, in your own studio.
Okay, so first of all, I'll talk about the kind of a recording thing in terms of do I use. I like to try and get things down when I'm recording them as I want them, as close as we want them to sound as possible. So if it's guitars, it's effect, using the effects, trying to get there on the front end of it. So that decision's been made then, rather than having at the end this multi-track full of things that are super clean or like can be adapted every which way. I just want to, by the time of the end of it, I just want to mix it and just like kind of get it, rather than think, but we could change the guitar sound now if we want to. It's like, you don't want all those variables towards, it's kind of, and also when, again, I guess that's like early days, I was probably a little more cautious on that front. But now it's kind of more about, you just want to capture something, you want to capture a moment, you want to capture an energy. So, if you start in like in a traditional way with, building up from the rhythm track up, you want that drum and that bass to have a sonic character, a feeling, to then know where you need to put the guitars, or even if you need guitars in sections. Whereas at the start, if the drums are quite, if you've like played it safe maybe and kept it quite, not giving them any character and be like, we can do that later. And then you do the bass, and you're like, but we can do that later. And then you do all these, and then all of a sudden you get to a place where it's like, you're adding all these extra things because it still hasn't got any character, maybe. So kind of, trusting yourself on those things. Yeah, so it's kind of, I would say, so I do, but also, you keep in mind those technical things as well. Obviously, you've got to, and so like, but with vocals, I'll track them with like EQ and compression on as well. And maybe then once I've recorded them afterwards, process them a little bit more, process them more, or, run them through some bits. But ultimately, you're trying to, as you're putting things down, you want to feel like it's sounding like a record as it's coming out of the speakers, rather than it's just a band that you can always go back and change.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does. That totally makes sense. So I think it's because you have differing opinions on how you should track in the industry, and I think it's a very personal approach. But I think there's things that deliver continuity through the creative process, and you've touched on the fact that your interfaces are one, but another one is your monitoring system. And you get used to the way they sound. And So
the second part of the question then was, because obviously I record in lots of different places. Like again, I will always take my interface with me, even if we have to use the one that's built into the studio at the time. I'll always try and by the end of it, at the start, just so I can hear the room, and towards the end of it, I'll end up back on that. And also, I take my speakers with me wherever I go. And I'll also sometimes, most of the time as well, I'll take Sonar Works with me, just so I can kind of get a gauge room, even if I haven't got it on while I'm tracking, or I know what the room's doing. So if I'm kind of like, rather than from the off, if it's quite bass heavy, cutting everything as I'm tracking, and then when I get home, it's like, oh flip, there's no low end to this. It's like, at least I know while I'm tracking in the room, oh, I know it feels boomy, but I know it's because there's a big bump at the bottom type of thing of this room. And when I get home and I listen to it in a flatter room, or it's kind of like, oh, okay, I get it now. It's fine. So I will. So they're the three things I will take, like the interface, my speakers, my Adams monitors, and also like I'll use Sonarworks as well.
Fantastic. Okay. When it comes to actually creating those tracks, what classifies for you, and what defines a good mix and a good master?
I don't know. I'm still trying to work that out myself. I guess it's for when you don't notice them.
Right.
Again, it's ultimately, it's like when you get back to what the music's for, who it's for. It's not about trying to show off the greatest snare sound in the world. So although we'll work hard at that, we'll chip away at that, it's kind of like, that's not why people fall in love with this record, or that's not why people fall in love with records. It's like, I think back, again, why those songs from when I grew up I can still sing them, or why those songs from my those teenage years kind of still make me feel a certain way. I listen back on some of those now, and it's like, in terms of sometimes you listen to me like, they sound terrible. Type of thing, but it's not about like it's about how they made you feel. So like with a mix, it's kind of like, of course it needs to sound like, technically you do work on technical things, but ultimately it's kind of is how it feels. Does the song come across? Does it is it something that makes me feel, what am I feeling from, what am I trying to achieve, what do we want, what journey are we trying to take the listener on with it? So it's kind of like a constant balance between that kind of, once you get to mix side of it, I guess, anyway, like, right, of course you want a nice solid low end, you want this, the top's not to be like bright but not too bright, and all those things, and create nice space, create a nice depth to it, create a dynamic, but at the same time, ultimately it's about how you're framing the song. And then when I send mixes that I've worked on to for mastering, it's kind of like, I just want it to come back sounding better. I don't know. It's kind of, I had a good chat with a mastering engineer a few weeks ago about it, and it's kind of, it's not just, it doesn't matter whether it's like loads better or a little bit better. You just want it to be better than where you had left it at the mix point, not just louder. You don't want it, it's kind of like, oh, I want to feel like it's just better. I just feel, it's kind of, it's gone through a fresh set of ears, fresh mastering process, and it feels deeper. The bass feels wide, all those just little percents. And I think, that's what mixing is. It's like adding, right, if I can make these drums sound 5% better than where I left them in the studio, the bass sound 5% better, they'll get all these instruments sound, all of a sudden those percentages stack up, and it's the same with mastering at the end. It's kind of, you just want them to, you just want it to have added value.
Okay. I've got just a few more questions. I know we've been going for 40 minutes, but that's gone by really quickly because it's been really interesting. But one thing I would ask you is, and I know this might be difficult for you to answer, what would you say is distinctive about a Gethin Pearson production?
I don't know. Well, I like to think, all those things I've said earlier in terms of trying to serve the song, trying to not put. So I know there's things that I like to do with things, and there's tastes, and there's things like that, and this kind of, I had a message from a friend today saying, oh, on this badly drawn Biome song, I can hear a lot of you in there, and like I like, it's kind of, I guess that's a good thing, but ultimately it's kind of, it's not, it's not my, they're not my records, I'm trying to, like, I would like to think that it's about serving the artist and serving the song. Of course, there's things I like to do, there's sounds that, tastes that I have, and things that you lean towards, but, and if the artist is enjoying those and liking those, then you go with them. But ultimately, I won't put those before what, the artist. I won't put them before the song. So and also, I guess, I try and get, I want the singer to always say, like, I want them to always feel like it's the best they've ever sounded. You know,
Sure,
it's
sure.
kind of, and it's like, you know, that's something I want them to feel like it's the best they've ever come across on a record. You know, so those things, yeah, you know, yeah. Rather than saying a clicky kick drum and a massive snare. No, you know, yeah, that's
well, you know, the reason why I asked that, it kind of leads on to, you know, like I say, coming up to the last few questions now, but you know, with modern production techniques, do you think it has inspired our creativity, or is there an element, how could I put it, of laziness, such as sticking a formulaic structure in the way people work in this digital age? It's like, oh well, it worked for this and that's on that template, so I'll put it on another one and see and do the same thing again. You know, do you think that the digital age has aided us, or it has almost stagnated us?
I think it's like equally, you know, with like as of everything, it's kind of you could argue either sides of that. You know, you could argue that, you know, with things like you got people, you know, you can make you know, you got algorithms that can write songs now.
Mm.
You know, but again, does it mean that that's gonna they when you know got an algorithm, but do people feel something when they listen to that? Does it, you know? And so you've got, and then you've got things like amazing websites like Splice that are like full of music, full of you know, you can just drag and drop a few things into a, you know, key tempo done and have like a backing track done within seconds, you know, within seconds. So it's kind of, which, you know, the positive of that is, right, great, I can get an idea together and start writing a song quickly, and technology is not in the way there, because, you know, I've got all these sounds, I can write a song, we can change the production later, great. But at the same time, it can add to that thing of, you know, like you know, laziness is a term you used. It's kind of, you know, I've done a few workshops with like people in unis before, and I was, oh, how did you put this song together? They were like, oh, I just got a few things off Splice, and you know, and that's it. What do you think? Is it ready to go? I'm going to release it next week. It's like, well, what artistic vision have you got for this? What are you trying to like bypass, you know, the work essentially, just to get, you know? So it's kind of, it all depends, I guess, what people want to get out of things.
Sure.
You know, it's kind of, I don't want to be here saying, oh, you have to spend hours and hours on something and do this before you can be classed as a musician or a producer, because that's not right. It's like, if you know, if you can put something together within like, you know, really quickly with the aid of technology, and people feel something when they hear it, or, you know, it's helped you express yourself, then great, type of thing. You know, it's kind of, I just chat with someone before, it's like we got all these different, you know, great apps. You know, I use an app which is like a great one where it's like different chord structures and you can just play through the chord structures. I use that all the time to write, you know, but the fact I've used that doesn't make the song better or worse. It's just a tool to get to the end of the song.
Right. Sure.
You know, it's kind of, I still have to make the choice if I want to use that chord structure or not, or if it sounds right, or if it feels right. It's the same, I guess, as like loading presets, like on your mix. Like, if, you know, you could load a multi-track up, load up kick preset, snare preset, all those presets. Yeah, it's going to sound like a record. It's going to sound like a good record. You know, it'll probably sound half decent, type of thing. But ultimately, it's kind of, you know, it won't have its own character, because maybe the human aspect hasn't gone into it, like the way that person, it's like I can mix the same song 5 days in a row and it'll never sound the same, even if I do the same process on that mix. You know, it won't sound, it'll be a different mix every day, just because, like, I feel like I want this vocal spin to be louder today, or I feel like the rhythm guitars were too bright today. So, you know, it's the interaction with the music and the technology and the tools, I think, is what, you know. And it's kind of like, if people use those tools but don't interact with it and just use it, then it's going to sound like technology.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if people use the technology and interact with it, and you know, kind of put themselves into it, then that's when you get the, you know, it can move from, I guess, the good to great. So, you know, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does. I think, you know, what you're doing is you're identifying an issue which is it is the difference between a song and a great song. You know, there's that any of us can put a song together, but it's those nuances and those things that just take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that you put that very eloquently, and, you know, I completely agree and completely understand where you're coming from. So although you know, we've managed to get through the last 45 minutes without touching on this.
We've got
2020 has been an interesting time for most of us all so far, and it has led to us being innovative and creative in our ways of working. And, you know, how do you see this change in the music and entertainment industry thanks to COVID?
Well, 2020, it hasn't been any different. I've been locked in this room every day anyway, so it's well, I kind of feel I've before this, you know, this lockdown happened, I would do a lot of remote work with people anyway. But what it's done is kind of, well, that's, if we want to work together, that's how we're going to have to work together at the moment. So it's been good in terms of, like, I've continued a lot of creative relationships with it, but also, you know, started a few new ones as well with people, you know, different places in Britain, but also across the world as well. So I think what it's done I guess it's taken away the excuse of we have to be in the room to work together. Obviously, ideally, we would be in a room because there's so much you can't gauge over this in terms of, like, slight reactions to music and the, you know, things you're doing, ideas you're doing, or, you know, that energy that's in the room when you're working on something, you know, obviously. So preferably you would be in the room working on things, but ultimately it's kind of, I think, not just in even creating music, just in so many different areas, it's shown what people can achieve from remote places rather than us always being in, like, a centralized place, whether it be offices, where, you know, obviously this place, you know, that communal thing is a big, you know, is a big part of why we get together. But using technology like this has been great, you know, to stay in touch with people or kind of chat to people. It's like, I know we've had chats within Prism about even new products, trying to work out ideas.
Don't tell people about that.
New products. Interview. Well, people will be, you know, I'm not giving any details away, but hey guys, no, you'll never have to write a song again. No, so, but serious, you know, it's kind of, I would say it's shown how much we can achieve without having to be in a room together. Yeah.
Cool. So, what can we expect from Gethin Pearson in the rest of 2020?
What have I got coming up the rest of this year? So yeah, once we are allowed back in studios, I've got I'm in halfway through 2 projects, so we're going to get, you know, as soon as we can safely be in a studio together. So we're looking at the moment possibly at the end of June being able to get together to finish some records. I'm mixing a few records, and then again, it all depends on what we're allowed to do travel wise, but there's a few things in the pipeline, you know, internationally, to do some writing and production sessions with some really exciting artists, really. So yeah, fingers crossed we can do it safely, really. Until then, everything's going to be over the internet.
And one final question from me before we throw it out to the audience. So, you know, if everyone who's watching, if you've got any questions, get ready now, because, you know, you'll have your chance to ask Geth at the end. But, you know, obviously you've been doing this for a number of years now, and, you know, there are artists that I'm sure you would like to work with in your career. But, you know, what do you want to do with your career going forward? Where do you want to take it? What's your goals and ambitions for, you know, the rest of your music career?
Just to be able to keep making music with exciting people, with, you know, exciting artists, is kind of and just always adapting to that, not being seen maybe as like, oh, it was that genre, that time period, you know, and then that's it. It's kind of, I love the producers who have made records for years and are still making records, who have kind of, because they focused on the artist rather than, you know, the one thing that they do, maybe, you know. So it's like, that's what I would just like to continue writing music, continue making records, making music with as many different people as possible, and keep learning, keep getting better, keep whatever better is. But keep progressing, keep adapting, keep going, basically.
Fantastic. Keep moving on. Excellent. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so that's I have got other questions, but actually what I want to do is take this final few minutes to throw it out to the people that are watching out there. So let's just take a few seconds. If any of you've got any questions that you'd like to ask, please write them into the chat on YouTube. If not, thanks for watching. But if you have got some questions, we'll take a few seconds to see if any questions come in.
The crowd go mild.
Yeah.
It's because you've answered. It's because your questioning was so thorough, Jody. There's nothing more.
That's what it is. Yeah, I've been way too on the case today. That's the problem.
Yeah, so well. Yeah, questions were brilliant.
Yes, good. Glad you enjoyed it. As I say, this is the first of what we hope to be a monthly event. We've got some extremely interesting people lined up from multiple areas, from mastering, from live location recording, large scale orchestral recording, the entire gamut of people lined up to take part in these creative conversations. So looks like, I think we have covered most of the bases. So thank you everybody for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you got something out of it. If you feel you want to leave any comments, please do. Like I say, this is the first one. Oh, hang on. No, we have got a question. Sorry, bear with me. So Paul has asked, do you have any go-to standard production techniques, Geth?
Go-to, it's hard to, without being able to chat back and forth. Go-to production techniques. Again, I guess it's the thing of always dealing with the song first, trying to listen. I'll always ask, even if they've done a fully formed demo, can you hear a version of the song with, minimal arrangement, whether it's just like singer and a piano or singer and a guitar, just to hear what the song's doing in its purest form, and a technique, I guess, just to hear it before the everything's been put around it. Yeah, and then obviously there's like other things that you kind of work on, like cutting some low off in the verses and then opening it back up for the chorus so that can go feel bigger. So is it, I don't know, Paul, if you're still there, is there anything specific you're thinking of, or is it just kind of overall?
Okay, while Paul's having to think about that, we've had another question in, which again, a little bit of a left field question. Elliot's asked, it's slightly off topic, but I've been eyeing up a Roland Space Echo for a little while now. Do you use it often, and is it worth the plunge?
You can see it in the corner there. I love mine. I was looked after. The guys at Soundgas sorted mine. Sorted a great one out for me, and I use it a lot. There's some great. I would say it depends in terms of taking the plunge where you're at. There's other things that I would put in front of it in terms of like, a great interface or a great microphone, a great preamp. But if you've got those things, then yeah, it's really going to do a lot of processing through it. I record a lot of things through it as well. So, I can use it on some. Obviously, I've only got one of them on a mix. I can use it on a few different things then. So yeah, I do enjoy it. I do use it a bit. Yeah. So yeah, if you can get a decent one, Elliot, and one that is, because there's so many out there that are not in great condition and it'll cost you money over and over again, and there's some great plug-in versions of it as well. There's some really good versions of it, which I would say if you're using them all the time, what I found was I was using one all the time, a plug-in version of it all the time, and I was also in every time I went to Eve Studios in Manchester, in Stockport, sorry, I was using their in-house one a lot on tracking. So there was and then I was kind of like, their one broke down and it was taken out of the studio for a while, and I was like, oh well, I was halfway through and we needed one, so I got it. Yeah, now it goes everywhere. I use a great studio space in West Wales called Studios, and they've got the 501, so they both get a lot of use from with it.
Interesting enough, Elliot actually does say that Sound Gas is where he's been looking. So yeah, good direction there from you, Geth. Paul's come back. He says, I tend to overproduce the exciting tools and virtual instruments you can play with. I write guitar, pop, and I'm from Manchester. So I was wondering if there are any tips in general for that, please.
Okay, yeah, I can. So what I would say then is, yeah, it is hard to restrict, especially when, you know, I was kind of similar. I would throw everything all the time, like, let's triple track, quadruple cat, as many guitar tracks as possible. And you're like, why doesn't it sound big type of thing? So I was just like, it's because there's so many things fighting for space all the time, you know? And then I was like, well, how can I get to that place where I don't add too much all the time? So what I try to do is try and get the vocals in as early as possible, so you know what you're framing. Because until the vocal is there, you can keep stacking and stacking and stacking. And then sometimes you put the vocal in, you'd be like, oh, I don't need that sound there now. I don't need that sound there. And you would start like hacking away at it all. So maybe just try kind of, I guess my advice on that front would be get your, you know, the drums, bass, the rhythm section down, and a few guitar parts down, and try and get a vocal in early, and then see, right, what do I need to support the song now, rather than, you know, loads of layers.
Okay, fantastic. Elliot has thank you for the input, by the way. And Paul's just said, congratulations on the album with Damon. It sounds amazing.
Oh, cheers, mate. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We're just coming up to our hour now. So unless there's any other questions, thank you so much for your time. I hope you guys got something out of it. I hope you enjoyed it. As I say, we'll be doing this on a monthly basis. And if you'd like to leave any comments, or if you want to send us an email with any suggestions of things you'd like to see, or any ways you think we might be able to improve this, we'd love to hear from you. So thanks for your time, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Goodbye now.